Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a super fun and exciting video for you guys today, and one that I particularly love to talk about. We are talking about the Dolphin Emulator, but we are not talking about the Wii or the GameCube, even though technically the GameCube is involved. That is because as of late yesterday afternoon, Dolphin finally folded in the Triforce fork of Triforce Emulation for arcades into mainline Dolphin, meaning you can play all of these arcade exclusive games today. And to say that trying to get Triforce to emulate in the past was cumbersome would be an understatement. It is something that I wouldn't even do a tutorial for just because I knew 9 out of 10 people were never going to become successful with it. But now, as of the most recent build of Dolphin, Triforce Emulation is in and it's working outstandingly well. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But let's do a little bit of a history lesson on what Triforce is before we get too deeply involved in the video. Back in the day when Sega was making arcade hardware, they would sometimes take console hardware and move it over to the arcades. Basically, Sega Naomi and Dreamcast shared a common lineage, and when Sega got out of the hardware manufacturing game, Nintendo, Namco, as well as Sega did a partnership, i.e. Triforce, where the GameCube would be brought into arcades as arcade hardware with a bunch of different I.O. boards, the ability to run off GD-ROMs from the Dreamcast era, as well as solid-state media on the Namco side of things. So basically the Triforce is a GameCube in a box made to run arcade games, and there is definitely some exclusives as well as some unique properties of each. Something like F-Zero AX here controls completely different than you will play it on the GameCube, and in my opinion AX is definitely the better version of this F-Zero game versus GX, and I always make the joke that the best F-Zero game Nintendo ever made was actually developed by Sega, but it's 100% something I think is true. If you leave me a comment down below and you tell me, did you even know the Triforce existed, or are you learning about it from this video? I would be curious. Let's take a peek at the overall notes from the actual Dolphin Emulation developers, and big credit to them for absolutely explaining every single update and the features it brings in. I would say their documentation set is the absolute best when it comes to emulation improvements, and I would say PCSX2 basically rivals them when it comes to explaining everything that is new. But this is absolutely a big deal because not only is Triforce a very particular piece of hardware that can be absolutely a pain to get running in real life, it's also one of those things. It keeps preservation alive, and it also has arcade exclusives. Both Mario Kart GP and GP2 are going to be exclusive to the Triforce, and playing them before today would be an absolute chore. Even when I would set these things up, I would fail at them maybe for 30-40 minutes till I finally got it running. That is not going to be the case today, and if you want a tutorial on how to do Triforce Emulation, leave me a comment down below. I might wait a few weeks to see if there's any other updates, because what I don't like to do is put out a tutorial and then have the developers change something that's fundamental to that. But if this is something you're interested in, do tell me down below and I'll probably make it for you guys. And even though the arcade Mario Kart games play completely different in a fun way compared to the home console versions, it's one of those things, they absolutely are still fun, and you see a lot of these tracks actually brought into Mario Kart Deluxe X, a video I did last week, and if you missed that one you definitely should check it out. But honestly, this is just straight up great because for the longest time the Triforce fork of Dolphin existed, but the documentation was not very well written and it was definitely missing some bits of information. I'm not knocking the developers of that, they did an incredible job, but it was just one of those things that hadn't been touched in years, and even trying to find the resources on how to get it set up could definitely be a chore for people. Think of it like this, Flycast has both Naomi and Naomi 2 emulation alongside Dreamcast, so something like Dolphin should definitely have something like Triforce emulation alongside GameCube. If you are wondering, the Wii was actually used for some arcade hardware as well, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom being one of the primary games that ran on it. And if you go through all of Dolphin's notes, you'll see a lot of the hardware photos here as well. But I want you to just remember one thing. Triforce was no more powerful than a GameCube. This was the era in which they would just put home consoles in a box, change nothing about them, and send them out to the arcades. And that's just because they were trying to have some cost-saving measures to make sure these games are ultra profitable before they even left the warehouse. So not developing a new GameCube platform, just strapping a GameCube in a box, building some I.O. boards, and saying, we're good, let's call it a day. But let's go into the first of two soundtrack samples because F-Zero AX has some incredible music, and it sounds great coming out of Dolphin on the Triforce emulation as well, and I'll be right back. Sounds exactly like something like F-Zero AX should. Now do be aware if you are going to go into Dolphin and try to play these games today, there are no options menus whatsoever as far as they would appear like a home console game. You're going to have to assign buttons for test as well as service, and you're going to have to navigate around the test menu to change all the options in the game, although they all basically ship at normal difficulty, so that is where I would start. Now do be aware, and I'll go over the notes in just a moment from the Dolphin Emulation developers, this is not the final version of what you're going to be experiencing 6 months or even a year from now, because the games are going to boot, they are going to be playable, but there are still improvements coming along down the line, but nothing that would prevent you from wanting to play all of these games today. And even though the Triforce doesn't have the biggest library, 2 exclusive Mario Kart games as well as a different version of F-Zero GX called AX with a ton of different changes to the physics system, making it harder and more fun in my opinion, that is worth its weight in gold alone for those 3 games, although there are going to be other games, just maybe not ones I'll showcase in this video, and I will leave a link in the description below to a full list of all the Triforce games that do exist, although be aware one currently isn't really controllable in the new version of Dolphin, and that's just because it has a very custom control scheme. But this, again, is just absolutely amazing that the developers decided to fold in this fork. And as you go through the Dolphin Emulation development notes, you're going to see that it basically took a year of code review getting this thing all strung back together for the main branch of Dolphin. Because the one thing I love about Dolphin as an emulator is concerned is it doesn't put anything in until it is ready for prime time. And it is one of those things, you can actually boot some of these games on GameCube, and you still can. That is how incredibly close the hardware truly is. And the nice thing is you're going to be able to save your game here as well, because back in arcades there was 2 different saving formats, cards as well as other saving functionality, and that's going to be incorporated into the emulation as well, because a lot of these games have the ability to come back in, keep your progress, and then continue where you left off. That was a function in the arcades to get repeated play. It's something you definitely want in emulation, because a lot of these games are designed around the idea that you're going to be keeping coming back to them over and over again. And considering neither of these Mario Kart games have ever been ported home by Nintendo, that's kind of surprising at this point in time that they didn't release it for like a $20 download. This is going to be really the only way to play them unless you find an original arcade cabinet, or unless you actually buy a Triforce board and run it in your house. And maybe I will do a little bit of a video overview of my Triforce board if I dig it out of the closet and do a teardown on it. But again, remember that you're going to have to go through all of the different test menus to make sure that everything is set the way you want. But I will say that by default, the emulation developers and overall resources here have done a great job at basically making sure it's set where most people would want it. But if you absolutely want to feel humble, just go ahead and dial up something like F-Zero AX to the hardest difficulty. If you even get 1 checkered flag, I would be extremely impressed, because this game pulls no punches. It is harder in its arcade variant than it is in the home console version, at least in my opinion. But let's do one more soundtrack sample and I'll come back and show you where Triforce Emulation is and what improvements are planned for the future. But enjoy the Mario Kart GP music as it's good, and I'll be right back.
Pac-Man, how quick? A solitary journey. Now into the final corner. Pac-Man is in the lead, leaving the others behind. Item shot! The winner is Pac-Man. Massive victory. Closing in on a rival kart. Mario shoots the basin. Bullseye. Mario is catching up. Mario is gaining on the leaders. Now on to the final lap. Mario, can this driver catch up?
I mean, I can't stress just how big of a deal this is for retro gaming emulation, because some of the best retro games to emulate are going to be those Triforce games, because you probably haven't played any of them. So you'll see here the Triforce Emulation roadmap, what is working and what is planned to work in the future. Because again, this is just basically day 0 stuff. This update has been out less than 24 hours as of me recording this voiceover, and probably about 28 hours after the video actually goes. But you have saving, you have custom cabinet configurations, at least in part, and you'll hopefully get some better force feedback in the future, because it is there, but it might not be the perfect implementation. But honestly, this is amazing. Wii emulation and GameCube emulation has long been buttoned up, but now we have Triforce Emulation, which is basically just GameCube emulation with a hell of a lot of extra steps. And trust me, this is not the type of thing you want to purchase unless you're a big arcade collector who wants to spend more time wiring up controls than they actually want to spend playing the game, because that is the reality of having some of this stuff. It takes you an hour to get everything set up and running, then you may end up playing for 30 minutes and deciding you're going to go do something else. So with Triforce Emulation in Dolphin, now you can play the game for 30 minutes and spend all of about 60 seconds getting it ready. And again, if you want a Dolphin Emulation guide or Dolphin Emulation tutorial for the Triforce games, leave me that comment down below, and as soon as I feel confident that nothing is going to change that would break that tutorial, I'll make it for you guys and show it to you. But the link to Dolphin's in the description below. Read all the patch notes because there is a ton of fun information in there, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. But trust me, as far as Nintendo emulation is concerned, this is absolutely an epic day and I'm glad to see it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.